there was a little glitch there. Probably some of you catch that. It was just a problem within my camera, the one that we're seeing at the moment. It was a technical glitch. Everything's good now. Welcome to episode 10. 10 weeks. Can't believe that we've reached this point, to be honest. Thank you once again for all the support. Again, I know that I'm repeating myself again by saying that every week there's messages and support overall in different forms. So thank you very much for all your support. Sometimes, as I said before, also it takes me a while to respond to everyone, but I will get to each and every one of you. Just give me some time, and that will happen. That will happen. So I'm still in Lisbon, as I've been saying for the past maybe 3 or 4 weeks now. I'll be here for, I think, a couple more weeks, more or less, and I'm going to fly back to London. And this painting here is actually a painting of the city of Lisbon. It's a shame that we can't see the top part because there's like the castle that you could have seen, but another time, for another time. But if any of my Portuguese friends, by the way, are watching this and are in Lisbon, I'm free for having a beer, man. Honestly, now that we can have beers here, why not? Why not? So hit me with a message if you're around. How's everyone doing? Let's go open the chat right now. And all right, so we have, of course, our usual public, especially Sabine, always here. She's a moderator as well, so that's why she has this little icon. So welcome, Sabine. Oscar, again, thank you. Oscar just told me a few moments before launching this live that he shared this with the comp team at Framestore. Thank you once again, Oscar. We'll see if more people will join in, and if there's other people from Framestore. Hello, everyone. I can see there's one at least extra, which is Roy. Hello, Roy. By the way, I don't know. Let me plug one thing from Roy. Actually, Roy Pecker is the guy that when I met him, probably remember this, Roy. When I met him, he was about to finish, or he had just finished the that video that went viral explaining compositing, really. I think the video is called VFX Games. You can watch it on YouTube. So that was the guy. That was Roy. Thank you, Roy. I think you've explained to the world, especially to our parents and grandparents sometimes, that what we do in a more simple way. So we have Roy with us as well, and we have new people as well. So welcome, everyone, once again. 10 weeks of this, so that's great. Thank you again. So pandemic update, probably you've seen the same thing, or you've been seeing the same thing as me, which is more and more, unfortunately, we are watching more and more people becoming available in our industry, regardless the level, regardless the where are they placed hierarchically. So this is definitely affecting everyone, and all of us, we all know people that are about to become available. We're all in the same boat. So sometimes knowing this helps, just to feel a bit of that empathy helps. So I hope that's the case. And the message here is we're all in the same boat. Okay, but yes, that's happening, and I've been predicting, and unfortunately I haven't been wrong. Not predicting, I don't like that word because I don't have more information that any of you have, but I've been, a lot of times right in terms of what's happening or what I think it's going to happen in the upcoming weeks, and I don't think that this will turn for the better, unfortunately, until the end of the year. For the reasons that I've been laying out from the beginning on this show. and it's easy to understand, I believe. Productions being on hold and the current projects being pushed in the schedule. Of course, that will open a vacuum in terms of what's happening in our industry. But the silver lining, I guess, it's the fact that everyone is expecting to bounce back as soon as we can, in terms of probably when the vaccine is out, and hopefully the vaccine will be effective and it will work as expected. All the productions that were on hold they are now concentrated in terms of like the waiting. That will because at the moment everything is accumulating, right? And then when this is getting lifted, all this work will be picked up, and there will be a lot of demanding in terms of people to work on these projects, and hopefully that's the case. But I don't think that will happen until the end of the year. I don't think. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but I hope I'm wrong. But we'll see what happens. But at the moment, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people becoming available everywhere, really, in the world, and regardless of their role as well. On the human side of things, as we all know, the world is being there's kind of a menace of a second wave. The US is being hit pretty badly. Let's not discuss more than just what it is. It is what it is, I guess, but we all know, and we've all been witnessing what's going on and what's the leadership in these countries. It seems like there's a trend in terms of certain types of messages being picked up by certain portions of the public, and the result is the one that we are seeing. But I don't want to get into much more than this, but there are some data suggesting that a second wave is coming, and WHO, I don't really get their approach to this, because sometimes they say it's unlikely, and then we see that it turns out it's not that unlikely. That's not what the data is suggesting. So we'll see what happens. I think we'll be able to know more exactly how this will turn out by the end of the summer, and then we'll have the normal flu season. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Hopefully everything's going to be fine, and everyone will be fine in our industry and other industries that are being affected at the moment. There will be an end to this. Okay, this is the positive message. Technical highlight of the week. It's something that I like to see now, because now members of the public are interacting more and more with the show, which is great to see. So the technical highlight of the week was sent by Igor, and it's basically a video from the Disney Research Lab that talks about and explains their approach to what they call high-resolution neural face swapping for VFX, which is something related with deep learning. I've posted, I think it was a couple of days ago, on the technical highlight of the week, an article also on FX Guide by Tiago Porto. That might be a guest on the show. We'll see. Yeah, that's also on the Discord channel. Speaking of Discord, please join in. If you don't know how to join, interact with the bot, and if you type !Discord, I think that it will send you a link. How's everyone doing here before we get to the Tech Corner? So Roy saying, thank you, man. I said next to you. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Roy was seated right next to me. I think you were on my show at that time. I'm not entirely sure. Definitely, we worked together for a while in the very beginning of your staying at that time at Milk. But I'm not sure if at that time we were still working together. Who cares? All right, hope everyone's doing fine. It's time for the tech corner now. Hope you enjoyed this one. And we will have the normal chat afterwards. And we'll present our surprise guest. Always a surprise guest. Okay? There's no easy way out. It's always a surprise guest. All right? See you in 2 seconds. So now we have a square, and we have this square in the 3D scene, okay? And we also have 6 normals actually. We have 1 normal per each face. And again, normal is always a vector that makes 90 degrees with that face in which that point was selected. The camera is looking towards that cube. That means that there's a vector coming towards us. The vector that we're seeing now, it's something that it's like this. That means that this angle, it's 90 degrees, and the angle that this makes with this guy is also 90 degrees. So if it's 90 degrees, the contribution from these 2 guys is going to be 0. And that's why when you select this color here, the contribution from the other 2 axes is going to be 0. So we'll have a maximum amount towards us, which is 1, and we have 0 contribution from the other 2, which means that since this is X, Y, and Z, the color will be only blue and nothing else. But if we start moving this around like that, you'll see that that blue is not going to be blue anymore. It's going to be something different. And we will be revealing the other faces of the cube that will take other colors as well, a mix of colors. So if you have our reference, if you select any point in this face, this point is always going to be something with this direction, always. And they will be all parallel to each other. They can go more up and down, but the direction will always be the same because this is a flat surface. The angle that this vector will make with the surface, and because the surface is always the same, all the normals will have exactly the same direction. Now that we know how the colors represent the direction of that normal, we would know that this will be more towards the red. And why is that? It's because this vector against this reference here, this Cartesian reference, you'll have a contribution like this, and you'll have very little contribution from the other axis in comparison, of course. In the same way, the top one, so the normals will be always with this type of direction, but because the direction is more towards the vertical line, the contribution that the y-axis has to define that same normal is greater than the other axis. That's why this becomes a bit more green. And it's the same thing with this guy here, because it's coming more towards us rather than upwards or sideways. Okay, that's why this takes more this color. So hopefully now you understand this a little bit better. And the thing is, if you understand this now, you will be able to understand that if we pick this color here, this will be enough to place an object with the exact same orientation. So how do we do that? How do we, with just the normals, we can define the orientation of a certain object in just one go? Okay, so we're going to do that very simply with a transform geo. Within the transform geo, we know that we have this input called look. Maybe this will not be used for majority of you, but this will basically force the geometry that you have plugged in here to basically rotate always towards a certain direction. So the direction that we want the object to look at is going to be exactly where the normal is, because we know that the normal will define the direction of the vertical line, and we want an object to face that same direction, so we can take the rotation of, for example, this surface here. So if we have a card, this will be our object, for example, that we want to rotate towards a certain direction, and that direction can be done with an axis, for example, that we need to put the value here on the translate, so this will be looking at this guy here. So if we select this one and you do it by hand to start with, we can say that this will be 0.099, then the other one will be 0.44, and the other one will be 0.114. So if we put this like really big and we merge this with our previous scene, you'll see that this took that information there. So we picked this color here from the normals, and we are making the card to be looking always to that direction of where this axis is. And no matter where you put the card, it will always look at that place, because this will take over. Now, how can we make this even more automatic for us? We have to find a way in order for us to extract this value here so we can place it in the axis. That would be great, right? A very easy way. There's multiple ways, and I prefer to do this either with Python or TCL. But I'm going to do, for those of you that don't know TCL or Python, there's a very easy approach that you all be able to understand, which is with the grade. So if we have a grade here, and with the gain, you have a color picker here that you can just pick this color. So you'll have that value exactly there. If you now link that value to here, that's it. That's all you need. So if you need to pick another one, you pick another one here. You see that this will always change color. I'm going to open a new viewer so you'll see this a little bit better. So if I now take this color here, you'll see that this will change accordingly, any face you like. So this is a very quick way to achieve that. Now that we understand the normals a bit better, we understand that the normals color-wise are defining the direction of that same vector that's coming out of that surface. That means that probably will be a way to convert normals into something that we can use to retexture. We're going to take a look at something that we already discussed here, which is the concept of normalization. But before we get into that, let's not forget one thing that we already established in the very beginning, which is the graphical representation of normals have a range between -1 and 1. And this is important for the normalization. So the normalization is always given by this formula, which is the set of values minus the minimum value of that set divided by the maximum minus the minimum. What I just established from the beginning is what's the maximum and the minimum that we have in our normals. We know that the minimum is -1 and the maximum is 1. And why do we want to normalize? Well, we want to normalize because we would like to transform the normals into an estimap so we can map certain things within the face that we are watching. So this will be a great way to fake reflections, for example. It's not a true reflection, it's a fake of reflection. But it's important for us to establish these concepts and to understand them in order for us to know how to proceed. Now, we know that an estimap is two ramps in X and Y. That's what they are. We know that the maximum and minimum is between 0 and 1. And that's what we want to achieve. We want to transform the red and green channels into something that will resemble the estimap like this. And by now, again, you should understand the concept of normals. We know that past this point, it will be negative. Okay? So we need to basically push this 0 value towards the edge. So we'll have a ramp between 0 and 1 from top to bottom and left to right in the same way that we have this one here. How do we do that? We need to normalize these values here, okay, the red and the green. So with an expression, we will follow this formula. So red, which is the set of values, minus the minimum, which is -1, and that will be divided by the maximum, which will be 1, minus the minimum, which will be -1. That's what we did. So from 0 to 1 on the red. The other ones will still become what they were, but we're gonna say exactly the same thing on the green. So we'll have the normalization on the red and green. In this representation, we still have one channel that we don't care about, which is the blue. And the reason why we don't care about this is because if we want to transform this to an estimap, we don't have any blue channel because the estimap node will not take more than 2 channels and the channels will be always red and green. So we can kill that blue channel there. If you do that, we will have something that it already resembles this. So it will be exactly the same thing on the actual edge from top to bottom, from left to right of the object that we have in our scene. So that's the normalization coming from the normals. So now that we have that, that means that anything that we map, taking this as our estimap, will be mapped within the sphere from top to bottom. It's not going to be around the sphere, it's going to be on the face of the sphere that we see, okay? Because that's where we took our normals from. And the values that we have in here only going to show us the normals visible to us, not the ones that are behind the sphere, for example. So that's why we were able to transform those normals into an estimap that is also the one that is looking towards this. If I now put this image here with the UV channels set to RGB, that's it. So now I have the entire thing from this point towards this one, bottom to the top, mapped to that same sphere. So that's what we did, and we can use this to fake reflections. Now, as I said before, this is not mapping things around the sphere. This is only mapping things to the surface that we see. But this will behave as a fake reflection, because if you go up and down with the sphere, we'll be able to see certain parts of the sphere on the top that if it was in a different angle, we wouldn't be able to. So there will be some movement within the texture of the sphere behaving sort of like a normal reflection. Again, this is not the true reflection, this is a fake reflection, okay? But it's a very cheap way of achieving that. If you want to map this around the sphere, you can always take a look at the SD map, and you can, with a grade, given the concepts that by now you should know what a black point does, what a white point does, in terms of how the curve behaves, and you have to always tick off the white and black clamp. You can now remap this by put this with a certain value on a black point, on a white point. You can go up and down with it. You can increase the scale of it, and this will be as if you were basically forcing the detector to go around the sphere more and more. It's up to you what you do with this. Sometimes you don't even have to do anything because it's a different way of faking reflections. Okay, but this is a very effective and cheap way of achieving reflections that it's in a way that hopefully you understand. It's not super technical, and the key thing to retain here is how you convert a certain number of values that you already know, the maximum and the minimum, into something that in this case is an SD map. And this probably will open your mind to achieve other things with the same concept. I think this is really important. Hello again, everyone. Hope you like that. It's related actually with our guest, because some of you don't even realize that know him. This is a show full of surprises. You'll see what I mean. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the Tech Corner this week. This was like a sort of a kind of a different way of expanding the concept of normals from last week. I call this part 1. There's more to it. We'll see when I'll be able to present what I will call the second part. But hopefully you've enjoyed that. There's quite recently an article or a tutorial flying around of a channel that I already mentioned here that does something similar. It's not the same, and if you came across with it, which is basically transforming UVs around a certain object, but basically wrapping them, mix the two concepts, and I think you know, your mind will expand a bit better. Hopefully that's the case. All right. So time to call our guest. As I said, probably some of you or all of you came across with his name at some point. So you probably don't even realize that you know him, and you'll see why is that. So let's call our guest, and then we'll open the chat to everyone. All right, see you in 2 seconds. Mr. Matt Stella, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, cool. Thank you for coming in. As I was, probably you were hearing what I just said. People don't even realize that know you. Because Matt is the guy that that basically wrote the original article called, I believe it's Expressions 101 on Wikipedia. Am I right? That very kindly opened it a few years back for me to add my piece to it instead of writing a new one. Matt was really kind to, okay, let's make this, because there was some connection there actually, but we'll get into that in a while. Thank you once again, Matt, for coming in. As I said, this is the face of the guy that wrote that article, so you know, you'll now know him. But for those people that never came across with that article. Oh, by the way, if the public wants to know what article I'm talking about, you can actually interact with the bot on the chat by clicking, I believe it's a question mark article, and the bot will give you the link to it. So Matt was actually the original author. And be able to see his name, but for those people that never came across with the article, can you, or don't know who you are, can you present yourself a bit better, saying where you are, what time is it, where you are, etc., etc.? Because you're not really near.
No, I'm not. Well observed. Yeah, so it is now 9:30.
In the
I'm in
night.
Sydney, Australia. In the night, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm currently the VFX Lead in Residence at the UTS Animalogic Academy.
There you go. UTS, which stands for.
And that's the end of the interview. Oh, the University of Technology, Sydney.
Ah, there you go. Cool. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you very much. And I was saying that even though we collaborated with each other and we lived near each other for a while, even though you're in Sydney, I was also in Sydney twice, but we never met each other. This is actually our first time.
Yeah,
which is weird, isn't it?
It's really strange because we've been using the same email subjects.
Exactly, it's always the same actually
over the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
it is. And it's been funny to see that that going back through it. At some point we said, "Oh, no, we should definitely catch up for a drink," and then suddenly here we are, 6 years later, and you're on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And here I am.
And this is the time for us to meet. we like.
Time for us to meet.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, you're from England, right?
No, I'm from Sydney.
Are you from Sydney?
I was
all right.
Yeah. I was. My accent was always pretty mild growing up here, and then when I went to London. And I had my accent made fun of in the first week for even sounding like vaguely Australian. So I thought, okay, fine. So in my time in London, I got to sound pretty British. And when I came back, it's never quite left. So it's kind of rounding off again, but it's.
I was absolutely convinced that you were from England. Honestly, I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Also because I know that you started your career, if I'm not mistaken, at the Mill in London, right?
That was kind of one of the places where I got I started to get recognised a bit, I guess, if you can say that. I got my start here in Sydney, actually. So I was working for a few little motion graphics places. But, you know, I guess like most of us in this industry kind of realised, maybe I could go somewhere else with this. And so my wife was in a similar position with her jobs being a coder and developer, and we went, why not London? Let's just try London. And so thought we were going to go to London for maybe like 6 months, and we stayed for about 7 years. So,
yeah, I guess that's such a common story for everyone, really. They think that they will go for a couple of months, and then it turns out it's not even a couple of years. Sometimes 20 years. You know, so
exactly.
We have one actually in our, if I'm not mistaken, one of our reviewers is Oscar, and even though, and I mentioned in the beginning of this live show, even though I've met him. Well, even though he's in London at the moment, I've met him many years ago in Sydney, actually. Not this last time I was in Sydney, but I've met him in Sydney.
Funny.
Yeah, funny. So the world is a small place, definitely.
It is.
Really small. But going back to the article, what motivated you to, at that time, to work, you know, wrote such a complete article like that goes way beyond... I mean, the premise, at least the title, right? It's much more than 101. Come on.
Yeah. So the genesis of that was I was one of the lighting leads at Animalogic, and a really good friend of mine also happens to be the comp supervisor at Animalogic, Alex Fry.
Alex Fry, yeah.
And so you know. I think it's no secret that in lighting, people will be called lighters, but really their job, especially in the CG features side, is always lighter compo. So, so I spend almost as much of my time helping people with their comps as I would with their lighting. But quite often I would come across a problem and go, I'm not sure, and I have to go ask Alex. And he would go, Matt, so simple. And he would sit down, bring up his OneNote, and go, like type lightning fast, and come up with just the perfect solution. And he'd go, there you go. And I go, what is he doing? And this happened enough times that I began to get quite frustrated with myself, thinking, he's not better than me. I know at least as much as he does. So it was out of spite more than anything that I went, okay, what is this node he keeps using? And it was Nuke's expression node.
Expression node, yeah.
Yeah, and so I started to play around with it, and I started to get a sense of it. And then I thought, okay, well, I should probably share this information with my team. So I started to write a couple of basic notes for my lighting team, and this is all on the internal wiki at Animalogic.
Animalogic, yeah.
Yeah, and these notes just grew and grew and grew. And at one point, I realized, wow, this is actually quite a helpful thing. Maybe I should put this somewhere. And I was chatting to Alex about saying, where should it go? And he went, probably onto Nukipedia. And so it was a fairly kind of a simple thing just to take the work I'd done and just go plonk and put it there and not really kind of think about it. And then it's funny that every now and then I'll just happen to look back at the site and go, there's 500 views. There's 5,000 views. There's 10,000 views. It just keeps sort of running.
Yeah,
up
it keeps growing, I guess. I would say every year keeps growing.
Yeah, and because it's funny that it's still valid.
Of course.
Most things. It's funny that most things within CG move really, really quickly, and the techniques from maybe like 2 years ago are suddenly out of date. But that one has always stayed valid. And so that was the genesis. It was basically spite and jealousy.
I mean, you mentioned it's surprising how much of it's still valid, and it's valid, I believe, because it's Mets, and Mets they don't go away, and like new technologies that going to be surpassed by the new thing that are coming this year or in a couple of weeks or in a couple of years or whatever. These are the foundations, and they don't go anywhere. So if people know the foundations, they're always valid. And of course, I'll be honest, even though, and we're going to talk about this in a while, but even though I collaborated with you on that article, sometimes even to this day, I see myself going back there to just recap some things, because if it's something that you don't use every day, and if there's a place in which you can, check or recheck some things, why not? So actually, that takes me to the point of when we expanded the content with my piece, it was actually related with a part of that article that I was also getting really frustrated. I don't understand how this part of the thing works, so I have to understand, because and as I said this before, I have a mechanical engineering background, so naturally I'm very curious, and I cannot live with myself of using something that I'm not fully understanding. And that was actually what motivated me to break the C44 matrix that was written, I believe, by Ivan Busquets. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, his name. I'm sorry, Ivan, if you ever watch this. But he was the one writing many tools that we use every day, and every studio uses them, like PMAT, for example. Everybody understands and knows how this node, and it was also the one writing the C44 matrix, which does great things. But when you were presenting that in the article, I was like, well, I'm getting everything right, but this part I cannot understand what it does and how it does it. And then I've mentioned something on the comments, and you've mentioned something, or either me or someone else asked the same question, and you said, no, you just use it, and if you don't have it in your company, you should ask, because it does great things. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't work for me, you know what I mean? Yes, I can use it, but I need to break in, you know what I mean? And then and that's when I basically reverse engineered that. And my motivation was, in order for me not to forget, because it's one of those things that if you don't practice, you will forget, I have to write this down. And that's when I expand, you were very kind to open that article for my piece, because I think it would complete that part that was basically at the end of the article. Then it got expanded to something different because there was a revision that we did, I did, and you've also incorporated in the article. I think it was like a couple of months ago, or even more than that, something like that. That has a even more expanded content, and it was always, or the main motivation was similar, but also different from yours, which is, no, I have to understand this. I have to understand this, right? That's what motivated you, right? I mean, it's something, foundations is always good to have, right? You don't need to know everything. Like, let's not split the atom, but you need to know the foundations, because they will be so useful for so many different things, way beyond your original premise, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for me, it's always, why, if you're going to get very philosophical about it, what is your driver? What is your sort of motivation for working, for being? And I think for me, it's always been being curious. I'm not really that driven to have my name in credits. I'm not that driven to have a beautiful show reel. I just like to follow my interests, and anything which can sort of make me think, how does that thing work? I'll go chase it. And and that for a while, like, I was barely competent. I still am barely competent in nuke. I can do an A over B at least 70% of the time well. But the expression node, I thought, no, there's something here. I think I can get a handle on it. And it really kind of made a lot of nukes suddenly make sense. Like, it all just kind of fell into place. And I think the other side of that is it does change your way of thinking, in terms of, you're not so much kind of, the tool isn't driving you, you're not driving the tool.
Exactly.
And I like that. I like that ability now, that kind of no part of nuke is a particular sort of mystery or secret, because now I really have deep in my brain this idea that the color and data and manipulation of those things are all one and the same. It's just kind of intertwined different ways of viewing bits of information.
You're viewing the same thing with different glasses, basically. That's what it is.
Exactly.
And that's why I think a tool like Nuke, and others as well, but we're talking about Nuke here, it's so cool, because you can see the same thing in multiple ways, and the graphical approach to everything, and this is not exclusive from Nuke, of course, it's more CG overall. It's pretty cool, because, color is everything. Color is everything. Is everything in terms of creativity, but also on the technical level. The way you see normals, the way you see position paths, the way you see in different types of position paths. It's all about color, and it's how you interpreted color. That's what breaks or makes your understanding of more advanced concepts. And we actually, on the Tech Corner just now, I've touched a bit on some of the concepts that you also mentioned originally on that article, and then I kept mentioning them as well on my piece, which is, and one of them is the normalization, which a lot of people confuse normalization, for example, with clamping, which has nothing, one thing has nothing to do with the other. And there's so many different things that we can do in normalization. For example, the one that I just showed now, and you also showing in your article, the original piece. And hopefully now people understand why this is so important, because of course when you're writing something, you cannot, go in terms of you do this because of this, you do this because of that. Because if you go back to the basics of the basics, I mean, we're still cavemen, right? So we cannot go, we cannot go so much behind. But hopefully people now understand a bit better how normalization works and why you come up with r+1 divided by 2. Now they probably know a bit better why is that. At the first time that I was watching that, actually that was actually something that I was like, why r+1 divided by 2? I don't get these numbers. And the thing is, and the message I guess I'm trying to pass here is, especially for newcomers, if you don't understand something, make your life mission to understand them if you want to go far in this industry, because it's all about being curious about what's surrounding you, whether it's an effect or whether it's a technical part that you don't really understand. But I think it's so important that you don't lose that curiosity, whether you're a newcomer or a guy or a girl with a lot of years of experience. And that takes me to my next question, which is, you're now a teacher, right? You're now a teacher. So all of these messages, I'm sure, you mentioned them in several different ways, but you mention them all the time, pretty much, to your students, right? But before we go into that, what you seem quite, because sometimes I see your posts on whether it's LinkedIn, well, LinkedIn mainly, and you seem, and you should be, quite proud of your students, like the works that they come up with in terms of their final course or final program. And speaking of the program, can you tell us a bit of the program that you guys now have, and how that differentiates a bit with other programs that other universities have? Because it seems like it's a bit more hands-on, and it would be great to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I'll do the really quick version. So it's a 1-year master's in animation and visualization. It's a really clunky name, animation and visualization. It's more just about sort of making images. So, images using kind of standard, offline film and TV kind of pipeline, as well as, real-time game engines and, data visualization, all the kind of jazz. The course is kind of set up almost as a bit of a challenge, really, where a few years ago it was kind of noticed that there's a whole bunch of schools that are turning out all these undergrads, and meanwhile there are all these animation studios, Animalogic included, who were wanting to hire people, but we just weren't finding students who seemed to be learning the right skills, for whatever reason. And as it turns out, the owner of Animalogic is quite friendly with the vice chancellor of UTS, and they said, well, why don't we try and fix this problem together? And so hence this course, and it's really trying to do that. It's trying to bridge the gap between what is the current state of undergraduate education and what industry requires. There seems to be quite this gap. And we do it largely by just making it be as close to a studio environment as we can, but people are allowed to make mistakes. In fact, no, we want them to make mistakes. We want them to make all the mistakes they can in here, so that they don't make them out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people, I think, kind of assume that it's all about, as soon as I learn this secret button in Nuke, I'm going to be amazing. Or as soon as I learn that secret button inside Maya, I'm going to be amazing. It's not that at all. Like, all of that stuff you can learn from the University of YouTube. It's all out there, right? Really, what we push very hard is how to recognize good from bad work. There's that classic line out of that early Steve Martin film, where his dad goes to him and he has like a piece of some boot polish, which is called Shinola, and it's dark brown. And he points at some cow shit, and he says, "What's that?" And he says, "That's shit." He says, "And what's this?" "This is this Shinola." He says, "Shit, Shinola." "Got it?" And he goes, "Yeah." I think he says, "You'll be fine." And that's kind of what it's like in this course. Is the students kind of do work and they show us stuff, and we go, "Do you think that's good?" And they go, "No." And we go, "Correct. Try again." And they try again, and it takes a bit of time. But by the end of the first semester, they're starting to get it. They're starting to understand what is self-reflection, what is self-criticism. And it's not subjective, it's not personal, it's not trying to be mean, but it's just you have to be able to look at your work and go, is this ready to show? And it could be undeveloped, but it's still ready to show, or it could have been polished way too far, and it's definitely worth showing. And if it's not ready, Why isn't it? If I can answer it, who can help me get there? And then the other side is working with others. Like if you talk to most people who've done some sort of undergraduate course, they'll have done teamwork. You say, have you done any teamwork? They go, yeah. And they go, okay, like what was the project? So, it was like 3 of us. And you go, yeah, okay, that's teamwork. Who is it? Whereas we, the short film our students are currently working on, it is all 40-something students. There's like 42 students this year, and they're all working on the one short film. And so
cool.
It's that sense of if I'm doing concept art has to flow down to modeling, which flows to surfacing, which flows to rigging, which flows to animation, which flows to there's a huge dependency chain. But it's also not just one way. Stuff flows back the other way, and so it might go down X far, and then suddenly rigging realize actually this is bad. Like the base length of the arm is too long, and that's going to go all the way back to concept. They have to fix it, and then it flows forward again. It's just constant iteration.
Yeah.
Just all these things that you almost just kind of take for granted if you've been doing this for a while in industry, but to students coming in fresh, it's kind of a bit of a shock where they go, oh. It's just every day, like 9 to 5. Imagine this is 9 to 5 is kind of a short day. Actually, it's going to be longer days.
9 to 5, that will be a dream, right?
And it's funny that like some of the interviews with our students, and we ask them, so what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for you when you start? And they go, well, 9 to 5 is a really long day, and just think, oh, mate, you have no idea what's coming to you.
Because I was about to ask that as well. Like, do you tell them how it is exactly, or do you soften the reality a bit so they don't get too scared about things? Because there's a fine balance that you have to find, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And we ease them into it. And so at the start, it's very gentle, and lots of sort of calm noises and pats on the back. Oh, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And compared to by the end of the year, it's just we're going into dailies 4 times a day to get the film done. We're in the last week of production and say, what is this? Is shit? Come and fix that. Yeah. And they run away and they fix it. They bring it back, and then half an hour. It's really kind of bang bang. But also we do try and be very honest about what is coming, and
of course
to teach them how to protect themselves, how to take care of their rights, what is sort of what is asking too much of them, because they will get asked to work overtime, they will get asked kind of to work in slightly less than ideal conditions, and what they can barter with, what is sort of fair game. And also I think and a big thing is just that it is a marathon and not a sprint. And so
exactly,
if we get students in the first few months, if we notice people are coming in a bit tired, or and we find out that they've been staying in at the studio till till 10 p.m, midnight, 1 a.m, we go, well done you for being so keen, but you've got to pull that back. You have to start to establish good work practices and work smart and not hard.
That's so important.
And I think
what you just said, work smart and not hard, if you can. Sometimes there's no choice, right? We have to do both, but that's really important. And I think what you're saying is it's really cool, because I've been receiving because of the show, I've been receiving once in a while some messages from newcomers, even though I realize that what I'm showing on the Tech Corner especially is not something that is really related with newcomers. It's a bit more advanced stuff. I understand that. I realize that. But some newcomers apparently are watching this. So for all of those of you that are watching this now, I think what Matt just mentioned now, it's really important. It's there's 2 things I would say to retain, which is work smart, not hard. If you can, sometimes we can't, right? But sometimes we have to do both, actually, most of the times. And the other thing, you mentioned something that was really interesting, and then I forgot. Because I was about to ask something different, and then I forgot about this one. But it will come to my mind in just a while. But all of those things that you're saying are super valid. So for those of you that are watching this, I remember now. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So don't try to get or to know or to push yourself to a point that you're getting frustrated by the fact that you're not being able to accomplish this, or you're not able to understand that will come with time, as long as you push yourself. Of course, if you stay in the couch all day not doing nothing, nothing will happen to you, of course. But this takes some time, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, definitely. Of course, we all would like to be presented with the better job opportunities, promotions, knowing more than anybody else in the team. Of course, we are all humans, and it's also good to have that, let's say, competition side of us. And we just mentioned this because what motivated you to write that article was sort of a competition, right? Within yourself, at least, right?
Yeah.
But that's important also. But yeah, I think all of what you just mentioned is really important. So for those of you that just contact me recently, Matt just mentioned something really, really important. One thing that I was about to ask, since this is a new program, right? I believe I was actually in Sydney when this stuff started, because we have a common friend called Diego. And
Yes,
and at that time, he told me that you actually were about to, because you were one of the very few that started the program, right?
yeah. I was. So I joined ALA in the second year, but in the first year I was visiting a lot, and so I. By the time the course started, I had fallen into an amazing position at Animalogic, where I was the VR supervisor. What that really meant was, while everyone else was on shows, I just had a room full of toys and was just told, play with this, work out, what we can do with it,
Cool.
find us cool things, and it was amazing. But what that also meant was that because I wasn't on a deadline and I didn't have sort of kind of right now production needs.
Yeah.
If I got a call from from the school, and I'd go, yeah, I can pop down. So I would take a slightly long lunch, and I would travel the like sort of 20 minutes from Animalogic over to UTS, and just pop in and just look at the work and say hi, and offer advice and point to things. And I just really liked it. I just really enjoyed my time there. And so in the second year, when they said, actually, we need some help, would you be interested? And I thought, yeah, I would. So
Okay. All right. Because he told me, he didn't tell me such a complete story like you just told me. But when I was talking with Diego, he told me that you were actually one of the ones starting the program over there. And you just explained it a bit better. But what I was about to ask you is, since this is a new thing, we're talking about a couple of years or something. No, yeah, a couple of years, more or less, right? 3 years that you've been there.
This is the fourth year now.
Fourth year now.
Yeah, and I joined in the second year.
Yeah. Are you talking about like because this is something new, the new technologies, like, things related with data science or LED backgrounds, all of that stuff? Are you also touching on those concepts that are new things in the industry, but we know that this will be more and more the trend and the way to go?
Yeah. So we try very hard to strike a balance. So, we have a pretty good collection of toys and gear at the studio. So, if there's something that isn't going to cost $1 million, we can generally get it. So pretty much all the current headsets we can get. We've got
Cool.
quite a few RTX cards to play with. We've got a pretty good render farm for doing big scale stuff if we want. But probably the biggest constraint for us is time. Most master's courses are between like 1.5 to 2 years. We cram that into 1 year.
Yeah.
And a byproduct of that is there are some things that we can't quite tackle right now. We're trying to think of ways. But one of those is unfortunately doing live action VFX. We every year, as much as I would like to say, we're super organized and we know exactly what we're doing. Every year we just scrape the film, and as well as whatever kind of a real time emerging tech project we do, like to the last day. It's like we just oh my god, last shot done, and we're in. If we add a live action component to that, there'd be just no way. Like we would have to add another 3 months, 6 months to the year. Just think about just in terms of like actually planning a shoot and and organizing actors and cast and all that kind of stuff and proper lighting. One of my sort of pet hates is badly done student live action VFX integration. It's all kind of grey lit and badly tracked and badly comped, and just I can't stand that. It just looks so amateurish, and to do that right takes time, and we just don't have that time at the moment. But we're working on it. We're thinking.
Well, that's good. That's great to know. And you just mentioned that you had supervision roles, right, in the past, and you just mentioned that you had a great position at Animalogic because you could play all day basically, right?
Pretty much.
But but apart from the playing side of things, as a supervisor, there are some similarities by being a supervisor, and differences as well, by being a supervisor and being a teacher. Because as a supervisor, the way I understand it, you have to be a teacher all the time, really, to teach how to do this, or to give them a different angle. I mean the team, a different angle on pursuing what they want to do, which you as a supervisor believe, but there might be some things that are not right in terms of what they want to achieve and what they want to accomplish, even though the solution might be the correct one. So you have to give them different angles. And I think as a teacher, on a setting that like the one that you just were describing in a university, you also have to do that in a different way. So what motivated you? Because now you're not in production, you're not more on the student or on the school side of things. What are the differences, and what motivated you for pursuing this new role in your career? Basically, that's what it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think what was kind of remarkable about ALA was that it was all the good things about production that I like, and none of the bad things about production that I hate. So in terms of we work on cool films every year. I get to have creative and technical inputs and work with a big fun team, and we try and push into stuff that we don't know how to do, which is all the things that I like about production. But I work 9 to 5, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
For production. I don't do weekends.
Yeah.
The great thing is that whereas ultimately in production someone else is the client, and it's very few times where a studio can be strong enough to go back to the client and say, no, you're wrong, it has to be this, because of time constraints or budget constraints or art constraints. We control our products, and so our ultimate kind of end goal is to maximize the students' learning and to give them great show reels. But no one has to die doing this. No one has to be killed. And so if we are pushing towards the deadline and we realize this one big kind of like really complicated effect is going to kill us, we can kill it. We can just take it out.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. Yeah, of course you have that ability for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's fun. And it's funny that the other bits of production that I didn't know I liked that much until I started to do this are maximized. So I really do, like, I realize now in hindsight that I really enjoyed bringing up juniors and finding really talented juniors and just giving them the tiny push up to go and be amazing. And this is that times 10, because our job now, our primary purpose is to find that and to help that, and to
Of course, yeah.
to see all these people just jumping off into just like amazing careers and flying around the world and being awesome. And I don't feel really that have helped that much. I've just given like just a little bit of a nudge.
Yeah, a push.
And that is it's a little push, and that is like remarkably satisfying and gratifying to be.
No, that's great to know. Yeah, because we've all, growing up, we've all had teachers that it's obvious that they don't like what they do, and the people who suffer are the students, of course. So having a teacher that really enjoys what he or she is doing, it's great, and it's great to hear that you're enjoying it so much, because it could have been the other way around, right? Because you never know, if you've never done this before, like as your day job, like 9 to 5 or 9 to 10 or 9 to 4 or whatever, if that's your primary new job, you could have realized that this is actually not for me, but it turns out it's not that, it's the other way around. So that's great, and I think your students and everyone that is watching would appreciate that. Speaking of that, if some people, we are about to wrap up actually, because I think it's over an hour. Time flies, so which is a good sign, I would say. But if anyone has some questions for Matt, whether they're newcomers or not, of course, this type of speech and what we're describing here, it's basically more for people that are considering joining in or would like to have a better education because they don't have the means to have or whatever. Please use this opportunity to ask Matt as many questions as you'd like. There's actually a question from Oscar that is not a newcomer, I know that, but he just mentioned, I'm going to read it for you. I want to work at ALA now. How many leads? How many leads do they take on?
At the moment, we are 3, and
because Oscar is from Sydney. That's the guy that I just mentioned. I believe you're from Sydney. If I'm mistaken, Oscar, from a different city in Australia, I'm sorry, but I've met him in Sydney. I've met him in Sydney, so I'm assuming that he's from Sydney. Maybe he's not, and I'm sorry about that, but he's definitely Australian.
Cool. Okay. Well, if he's in Sydney, come visit. 2,
Blue Mountains, you just mentioned.
Oh yeah. Come down.
There you go.
Make a day trip out of it. It'll be good. We're not taking extra leads at the moment. I think it's no secret that the whole COVID stuff has affected a lot of industries, and it has affected the university side quite heavily. So
yeah, can imagine.
So we're seeing all these sort of like terrifying figures of how much money UTS is going to be kind of under for this year. It's up in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Unsurprisingly, there has been a bit of a freeze on hiring, but I mean, look, that can't last forever. We have projections to add more students and therefore more staff. So yeah, come visit. We'll talk.
Yeah, there you go. You see, Oscar? It's as easy as this. And you're from the same country, so it should be easy for you guys to meet each other at some point, right? Yeah. Especially after all this COVID thing is out of the way. Hopefully, by the end of the year, things will look a bit better. Anyone? Is there any more questions? Let me check really quick. I don't think there's any. People get shy when they have the opportunity. They don't ask questions. I don't get it. Come on, guys.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, you know where to find Matt's work. Can attach a face to the article, and there you go. And Matt, if you have questions about the article, please post them there. And if it's my piece, I'll try to answer the best way I can. If it's Matt's piece, I'm sure Matt will do the same. And we're pretty fast on responding to people. Might take us a while sometimes, but we'll always get back to people. So please keep doing that. And if you have any other questions, you have 1 more minute, and then we're gonna wrap up. Cool. Any additions coming? Sorry, there again. Say again.
I was just going to say that I saw the invite to your Discord as well, so I've just joined. So
Ah, there you go. Even better. Look at that.
Hey.
You see? It's even more direct. It can't be more direct than this unless you're in Sydney or you're from Australia. Matt Cameron is asking if there's going to be any more additions to the article. Well, I can respond to, at least on my part. I just made as I just mentioned, I just expanded the content, I think it was around 3 months ago. So I'm not planning to at the moment, because that was like something that took me a while to come up with a couple more pages of content. Because I had to go back and study a few more things. But on my part, I don't think so, at least it's not planned. Let's hear about Matt's part.
Not really. I mean, I think what my aim was to, just kind of show, a bit of a toolkit for how it could be used, and hopefully that'll be enough to, help people think for themselves and go, oh, I can use all these little building blocks to do X, Y, Z. I mean, people have been, pretty busy in the comments at the bottom of the article. There was only really one question that said, but how do you do this? Which was how to do projections. And I went, yeah, good question. So I went and worked on that.
Which was, I believe, the 4x4 matrix, right? The C4-4, right? There you go. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think if someone else, puts another question in the thing, and I go, yeah, what a great question. I'm going to go work that out. I'd totally do it. But,
ask away. That was actually that question that you just mentioned. I'm not sure if it wasn't mine, because I might have been, because I was like, well, how do you do that? How does that thing work? And then I discovered how to do that with the native nuke nodes, and that's what motivated my piece of the article. And then, as I just mentioned, it got expanded to many different, well, not many, but more advanced stuff, taking always that piece as the part one lock, other things to achieve different things, but it all came from the same source, basically. You can watch also.
It was all your fault.
Maybe it was me. Maybe, I'm sure other people ask some similar questions, I guess. But you can watch these tools that I'm talking about, taking these concepts in my channel. You can also interact with the bot to know where to find them. But one of the answering Matt's question, one of my last editions was how to use the same concept of projecting something without, basically do projections without geometry, and that you can take that concept to expand to something similar to, well, I built the tool that does exactly that, which is out of one point how you can extract a track, but instead of as if it was a projection, but it turns out it's just a corner pin. So you can watch that on YouTube as well, and you can read the article. There will be the link for that as well. But the article, it's the Maths part. It's so comprehensive, and it goes way beyond 101. Way beyond. I wouldn't call it 101 at all. You just mentioned that you barely can do comp. I mean, I think that that article says otherwise, but anyway. So guys, thank you once again so much for coming in this session. Matt, once again, thank you so much. Nice to finally meet each other. We'll see. Cool. We'll see when we can have a drink together one of these days. I'm always talking about getting a drink. People might think that I'm an alcoholic or something. I'm not. All right, I'm not. I just like to drink with some friends. Why not?
You're just very thirsty. You're very thirsty.
I'm very thirsty.
You can't help that.
There you go. Exactly. Again, Matt, thank you so much. Nice to meet you finally. And we're gonna have. Thank you. We're gonna have our next session. It's not gonna be next week because I'm gonna have my birthday somewhere next week. So I will have some break for myself for a week. But in a couple of weeks or so, there will be the next one coming, but I'll be, as usual, announcing in all the mediums that this project lives, including primarily or first in Discord section at some point during a couple of weeks or something like that. All right, guys, thank you once again. Matt, please stay on so we can have a chat afterwards. Again, as I said last week, these are the perks of being the host of the show. I can have extended conversations apart from the show. But thank you once again, everyone, and see you at some point, like in a couple of weeks, I believe, something like that. All right, see you guys. Bye bye.